They showed up with clipboards, fake patches, and threats, thinking they could scare a man out of his house. But what they didn't know was that 6 Navy SEALs were about to roll up his driveway. The knock came hard, not friendly, not neighborly, more like a warning shot across the bow. Calvin Dunmore, 44 years old, standing in his kitchen in Concord, North Carolina, hands still wet from washing dinner plates, felt it before he heard it, the kind of pounding that makes your chest go tight. It was just past 6, right as the world softens and folks wind down, but right then the air outside might as well have been a loaded gun. Calvin wasn't the nervous type. He'd been through divorce, busted paychecks, late nights raising 2 kids alone, and more ugly calls from the bank than he cared to count. But as he walked to the door, towel in hand, something in him buzzed with a warning. This wasn't the mailman. He opened the door. 2 men stood there, tactical vests, white letters, HOA Enforcement Division. They had radios clipped to their belts, silent, and clipboards gripped in meaty hands. The tall one, scar over his brow, barked out first. "Mr. Dunmore?" "Yeah, that's me. You're in violation of neighborhood code. Per HOA policy, you have 48 hours to vacate this property." Calvin let out a laugh, sharp and short. "Vacate what? I paid this place off. I just talked to the HOA president last month." The other one, stockier, shades too dark for dusk, cut in, "Doesn't matter. You're out of compliance. You've been served. 2 days. Then you're gone." Calvin just stared, the air between them thick with disbelief. HOA fines, he knew. Late dues, trash cans out, grass a little wild. But 2 guys showing up dressed like Blackwater? "This makes no sense," he said, voice growing. "If I screwed up, they'd mail me. Nobody comes at dinner in tactical gear." The tall one leaned in, voice like gravel. "We're not here to debate, sir. We're here to enforce. You leave quiet, or we escalate." He could feel it now, something off, not just the cheap shine on the badges or the way their paperwork had no HOA letterhead. Even the radios weren't on. His dad used to say real authority never needs to shout. These guys reeked of trying too hard. "Who sent you?" Calvin asked. "Which board member? What violation exactly?" The short one's lips curled. "Don't make this hard. Most people take the deal. We're giving you a chance to walk away." Calvin didn't answer. He just stood there, letting the silence stretch. They weren't real. But fake or not, they were standing on his porch, trying to muscle him out of his life. He squared his shoulders. "You 2 need to get off my property," he said, voice low but steady. The tall one smirked, like he'd been waiting for that. "Or what? You gonna call the cops? Tell them the HOA came to your door? Go ahead. See how fast they show up." Calvin clenched his jaw. Not fear, anger. He looked down the street, hoping a neighbor was out. Nothing but a dog barking and a lawnmower fading off. The stocky one dropped his voice to a growl. "Last warning. 48 hours. After that, we handle it our way." They walked off, black SUV waiting at the curb. Calvin locked his door, hands shaking with rage, not fear. He didn't know it yet, but help was already coming. Old friends who'd turned this night upside down. He didn't sit. Instead, he paced, phone in hand, thumb hovering over the HOA president's number, Patricia Landon. He didn't call. That's what they wanted, for him to panic, to act desperate. So, instead, he peered through the blinds. The SUV was still there, both men inside, one tapping at a tablet, both watching. He stepped onto the porch, calling out, "Hey, you mind telling me who sent you?" The tall one walked over, boots hitting the pavement like a dare. "We already told you." "HOA." Calvin wasn't having it. "You didn't tell me anything. Name the board member." The man's jaw twitched. "You're asking too many questions for a guy about to be homeless." Calvin stepped closer, not backing down. "You picked the wrong house. I've paid into this place since before you even heard of it. If there was a real issue, I'd get a letter, a call, not this little show." The short one shoved a paper at him. Calvin looked, no letterhead, no signatures, just a blank form with bold type. Looked like something whipped up on Google Docs. He waved it. "This isn't worth the printer ink." Shorty bristled. "We don't need you to believe. Just to go. Most people don't argue." Calvin smiled. "You came to the wrong porch. I don't scare easy." The standoff deepened. The tall one tried again, voice lowered. "We can do this polite, or hard. Nobody wants hard." Calvin's heart was racing, but not from fear. He'd faced down plenty of bullies. "You set foot here again, I promise you'll regret it." The short one sneered. Call the cops. They'll take hours. We'll be gone. Calvin's lips barely moved. I won't need the cops. The tall one cocked his head. Oh yeah? Who you got then? That's when Calvin saw them. Headlights at the end of the block. 3 SUVs rolling in, moving slow. The imposters didn't notice. Calvin did. He recognized those cars. He recognized the men inside. The tall one glanced over his shoulder. Friends of yours? You could say that. Doors opened. 6 men stepped out, all ex-Navy SEALs, all brothers in arms. Jonas Redden, Marcus Anvale, Pierce Lockhart, Damian Crowell, Silas Trent, Von Kessler, each with the kind of presence that turns the air electric. Jonas, silver streak in his beard, stepped up. Cal, what's going on? Calvin pointed at the fake cops. These clowns say the HOA wants me out in 2 days. Pierce let out a sharp laugh. HOA enforcement? You mind showing us some real credentials? The tall imposter tensed, but Jonas and the others didn't move. Silas studied the vests. Looks like eBay specials. Real field gear doesn't look that new. The short one snapped. We're not here to debate uniforms. We're here to enforce rules. Damien crossed his arms. Name the statute. Show us the code. A beat too long. That's all the proof the SEALs needed. Vaughn chuckled. Bluffing so hard it hurts. The crowd was forming now, neighbors peeking from behind curtains, a couple out on porches, phones lifted. Word was spreading. Pierce leaned in. So what's the game here? Scare folks, loot the place. Shorty barked back. Watch your mouth. Pierce didn't flinch. What are you gonna do? Arrest us with those toy radios. Wave those dollar store badges. Silas added. You made a mistake. You found a guy with brothers who don't back down. Calvin stood taller. You thought the HOA sent you with combat vests? I worked too hard for this place. My kids grew up here. You don't get to walk in and take it. Confidence cracking, the tall imposter stammered. You're interfering with official duties. Vaughn barked a laugh. Only crime here is you pretending to be cops. That's a real sentence. Jonas folded the fake notice and stuffed it in the guy's vest. 2 choices. Get in your car and leave, or we call the police. Either way, this ends here. Tension crackled. More neighbors, more phones. But then, another engine rumbled, a pickup pulling up behind the SUVs. Dean Morick, another SEAL, broad as a doorframe, stepped out, eyes scanning the scene. Some party you got, Cal, he said, dry as dust. Calvin exhaled, tension easing. Dean glanced at the imposters. Who are these? Jonas deadpanned. HOA cops, apparently. Dean almost laughed. HO cops. That's a new one. Imposters didn't like being laughed at. The tall one tried again. He's out of compliance. This is official notice. Dean looked him up and down. Vest is stitched wrong. Radio's off. Patch looks like it came off eBay. You're faking it. Marcus stepped forward, voice just loud enough for the crowd. Problem with pretending. Someone real shows up, every flaw gets exposed. The short one spat back. We don't answer to you. Silas, business? What business? Shakedown in daylight. Picked the wrong address. This man's got friends. Calvin faced them, anger now steady. I'm not going anywhere. Why don't you tell me why you're really here? The imposters exchanged a look. The act was running out of steam. Dean said, I've seen this before. Intimidation, fake authority, it only works if folks stand alone. Today, you picked the wrong street. Phones captured every second. The tall one tried to save face. You're interfering with federal business. Jonas barked a laugh. Federal? HOA ain't federal. You're caught. You got 2 options, but walking away is the only one where you don't end up in cuffs. The short one twitched, hand moving toward his vest. Vaughn's voice boomed. Don't move that hand. Everything froze. The imposter dropped his arm, realizing how outmatched he was. Neighbors lined the sidewalk, cameras up. Calvin's friends fanned out, a human wall. Jonas called out, show your ID. If you're official, prove it. The tall imposter tried to grin. We don't have to prove anything. Jonas shot back. Then you've already proved enough. Pierce added, you boys came here thinking you'd scare a homeowner into packing up. Should have checked who lives here. The short one puffed up. We're authorized. Damien. By who? Name? HOA president? City official? Silence. The crowd buzzed. Phones recording. Murmurs growing. Silas, what was your endgame? Scare him into leaving, strip the house, maybe squat, and hope nobody notices? You didn't think it through. Calvin, now backed by a wall of support, called out. You thought I'd fold? You don't know me at all. The tall one snapped. You don't know who you're dealing with. Jonas, calm but deadly. No, you don't know who you're dealing with. Pierce snatched the clipboard, flipped through it, tore it in half, tossed the pieces onto the grass. Print out from some free website. You couldn't even change the default font. The crowd snickered. Damien folded his arms. One move left, walk away. The tall imposter's pride kept him stuck, but he was trapped. Jonas turned to Calvin. Call it, Cal. Calvin stepped forward, voice steady. You heard the man. Get off my property. Finally, the imposters edged toward their SUV, but their posture said they weren't done. The taller one's body tensed, the shorter one's jaw set, like they were thinking about making a scene for the cameras. You think you can humiliate us? Pierce. Go ahead, make it clear for the internet. That drew more laughter. Damien stepped up, voice cool. You had a clean exit. Don't make this worse. The tall one squared up. You don't understand who we answer to. Jonas cut him off. No, you don't understand who you're standing in front of. We know what real authority looks like, and you don't have it. The short one hissed. This isn't over. Vaughn's voice boomed. Wrong. The only thing you'll regret is picking the one street with 7 seals. A neighbor with a dog came down the block. Phone up. Now the imposters weren't facing just a handful of men, but an entire community. Calvin's voice rang out. You want to keep pushing? Every second, more people are watching. This ends with police, or it ends with you walking away. The short one let out a laugh. Police won't do a thing. Dean finally spoke, soft and calm. Impersonating authority is a charge that sticks. And you just admitted it on camera. The imposters realized it was over. But the tall one tried to throw one last threat. This isn't the end. We'll come back. Silas's voice cut like a blade. No, you won't. Next time, it won't just be us, it'll be squad cars. You won't get a second shot. Jonas stepped up, shadow long over the man. You think holding out makes you tough? Makes you desperate. At last, the imposters retreated. The tall one spat at the ground, climbed in the SUV, slammed the door. As they sped off, the neighbors cheered. Not loud, but enough. But just as the SUV reached the stop sign, sirens split the night. Blue lights swept the street. 2 patrol cars boxed in the imposters. Real officers, hands on holsters, yanked them from the vehicle, voices booming commands. Calvin and his friends watched as the imposters' bravado vanished. Sergeant Willis, broad and weathered, swept a flashlight over the fake gear. Props. Not even police grade. The imposters tried. We're HOA enforcement. This is a misunderstanding. Sergeant Willis shook his head. That's not a thing. Not with tactical vests and threats. Calvin spoke up, voice clear. They handed me fake papers. Threatened me. Told me I had 48 hours. Neighbors murmured, phones up. The officer cuffed them, reading rights. The short one snapped. This isn't over. You'll regret this. Calvin stared him down. Only thing I'll regret is if you ever show your face here again. As the imposters were led away, Jonas leaned in. This is what justice looks like. Daylight. No shadows. The tension faded, but the anger lingered. The neighborhood buzzed with relief, conversations swirling, kids wide-eyed, retelling it like a movie. Next day, word spread, Facebook groups, local papers, video clips. Calvin sat on his porch, mug of coffee in hand, nodding to every car that slowed. Jonas joined him, arms crossed. You're a hero now. Calvin shook his head. Not a hero. Just didn't want to be bullied. Jonas said, that's why it matters. When people stand together, scammers lose. That afternoon, the rec center filled for a community meeting. Patricia Landon at the podium, voice resolute. Let me be clear, the HOA never enforces by intimidation. What happened last night was a scam. Thanks to Calvin and his neighbors, it's over. Applause. People crowded Calvin and his friends, telling stories, scam calls, odd knocks, letters. Dean summed it up. It's not about being a veteran. It's about standing up. You just need courage and sometimes a little backup. By nightfall, Calvin finally let himself feel it. Sitting by the fire pit, he thought about how easily fear could have won. But as Jonas sat beside him, he realized, fear works only when you're alone. When a whole street stands up, bullies lose. The next morning, Calvin walked the block. Neighbors waved, kids nodded, even the teens gave respect. The imposters had tried to divide and conquer. They'd united the neighborhood instead. That week, Sergeant Willis called. The imposters faced charges: impersonating law enforcement, fraud, trespassing. Calvin felt relief, but more than that, gratitude. The lesson was clear: stand your ground, tell the truth, don't let fear write your story. At the cookout that weekend, Pierce raised his drink. Here's to being in the right place. Dean added, here's to Cal for standing tall. They clinked bottles, fire crackling, laughter chasing away the last of the fear. Calvin looked at his friends, at his house, at the street, and felt, maybe for the first time, what real security meant. So if you take anything from Calvin's story, let it be this: never be afraid to question authority, never let intimidation corner you, and always stand shoulder to shoulder with the people around you. Fear only wins when we let it. And if this reminds you of the power of community, courage, and truth, share your thoughts below. Where do you draw the line between standing up and standing alone? Because sometimes, all it takes to beat a bully is one neighbor who says, "Not today."